exactly his position on this matter and what the way forward his proposal is. We'll have some lawyers also joining us on this matter here on Ghana Tonight. As always, let's hear from you. The hashtag we're using is Ghana Tonight on Facebook and Twitter. Let's get talking. And we're also just hearing an accident that occurred earlier today at the NPP's office in the La municipality. Stay with us. We have some latest information there because we understand one person is feared dead and another in critical condition as a result of that accident at the NPP's office in the La municipality. We'll get into it shortly, but let's settle for Ghana Briefs.
Retired Justice of the Supreme Court, William Atuguba, has criticized the Supreme Court, describing its decision in the Jachikwe case as scandalous. He contends that the court breached the fundamental legal principle in determining the matter.
The James Jachikwe's decision by the Supreme Court is, with all due respect, scandalous, in that the court, in the teeth of the settled maxim, res judicata et non quietem movere, re-adjudicated the same matter that has been adjudicated upon by the High Court on the merits. Never seen this type of thing in any judicial system.
Flood-displaced residents sleeping in schools and makeshift structures will have to endure a bit longer. This is because government is yet to take a decision on whether or not to relocate those affected permanently or put up more robust shelters to accommodate them.
People are there testing the water. People are there. The Ghana Health Service have the regional and district directors conducting some tests to see whether the places affected are still habitable in the meantime whilst the spillage is happening, whether they are too contaminated that people have to be moved. It is that information that they will give to the center that will inform some decisions by the committee.
There's an outbreak of typhoid fever and malaria in Bupe in the central Gonja district of the Savannah region as open defecation has become rife. Health officials say 85% of cases reported to health facilities are that of typhoid fever and malaria.
Floods around our community. The cases keep on coming. There is quite a rising number of cases that we have been seeing. In fact, lately we have had cases that have had typhoid ileal perforations, which we've been able to do surgical operations, interventions for them. Those that have been lucky not to reach the stage of perforation, we're able to manage them medically.
Vice President Dr. Baumia has hit back on what he says are lies and attacks against his person ahead of the NPP's November 4 presidential primary. The Vice President and a leading contender in the November poll has come under a barrage of criticism, the latest by former flag-bearer hopeful Professor Frimpong Boateng. Addressing delegates in the Tatales Tunguli constituency, Dr. Baumia said they can see their defeat, hence the attacks.
As the person who's standing up for the government and for the party. Where there are mistakes, he admits it. There have been difficulties here. We're trying to correct it. What are the new programs that are coming? Gold for oil, some of these other things that are coming, innovation. But how do you say that the person who spoke up for the party, because of some difficulty and those things have not come as we expect, he will lose the election?
The Inspector General of Police, Dr. George Akufu Dampare, has denied allegations of brutalities against protesters of Occupy Jilobi House. At an engagement with members of the Ghana Private Road Transport Union at the police headquarters in Accra, he described the allegations as blatant lies.
I will challenge you to bring any evidence that speaks to the fact that you were brutalized as I speak. after months of completing that demonstration today, not a shred of evidence have been brought up to indicate that police has been brutalized. But until I told you this, and you being here, you will have had a mindset based on what they were spilling out there that they were brutalized. It was never so.
Oh, there's more news on 3news.com. Make some time and visit 3news.com. Coming up next here on Ghana Tonight, one person has been confirmed dead after a Kia truck loaded with beer bottles crashed into the New Patriotic Party office at Okodan in the La municipality of the Greater Accra region. The incident, which occurred earlier today, also left one person in critical condition. The truck has since been pulled out of the rubble and towed away by the Ghana National Fire Service. Now, that's the video that you're seeing there right now. And we received this notice earlier in the day. In fact, that incident never happened. But take a look at this and the extent of this accident that happened at the NPP office at Okodan in the La municipality. Now, take a look at this. This is the truck that had crates of, you understand, beer bottles on the back of it, the bucket, and it drove straight into the NPP office in the La municipality of the Greater Accra region. This tragic incident, which you're seeing there, so that building that this truck ran into is the NPP office in the La municipality, specifically a place called Okodan. We're getting information that one person has been confirmed dead, and then another in critical condition. That's the information that we have now of this rather unfortunate incident that happened. And the blurred video is the Ghana National Fire Service officials who arrived there going into this rubble and rescuing this person who was in critical condition, and then also retrieving the body of the deceased. So we understand it, the body of the deceased is what was put in this white body bag, the white body bag in there. And rather unfortunate incident there. So that's what's been happening now earlier today. It's been confirmed that indeed one person died as a result of this accident. And this is when the NPP office in La, earlier today, a vehicle, that's a Kia truck, just drove straight into the NPP office in there, leading to the death of this person. Fortunately, we have a member of the Public Relations Department of the Ghana National Fire Service, ADO1 Alex Nate, who is coming from this disaster or the accident scene at La, the NPP office at La. The videos you're seeing on the screen right now. He's with us in the studio. ADO1 Alex Nate, thank you so much for joining us here on Ghana Tonight.
It's a pleasure.
So, at least with the videos we're seeing, there's clear confirmation. Was this person in the office of the NPP? Has the identity of the person been confirmed as a staff of the NPP in the La area?
Okay, so we had, as you rightfully said, we had two people who were reported to have been injured. So they are food vendors who sell in front of the NPP office.
Food vendors?
Food vendors. The deceased one sells kinky, while the critically injured one sells wachi and then rice.
Oh, so it's a food vendor has lost her life.
Two food vendors, yes. A food vendor.
And then the other in critical condition. How serious is the injury of this other person who is in critical condition?
Her legs are totally broken, and unconfirmed reports are even indicating that she's dead. But as I said, it's unconfirmed, so I don't want to put it out there. I don't want to get. I'm sure by tomorrow we'll be able to get concrete confirmation whether she's alive. But her condition was life-threatening, and it's a hope that the rumor shouldn't be true.
Now, but were there any persons in the office, this office, that the truck ran into?
So fortunately, there was no one in the office when the truck ran into it. What I gathered was that they had a meeting coming up. So the meeting was scheduled to take place, some minutes away when the incident happened. So I would say that if the incident had happened much earlier, we would have recorded much more casualties. And from what we gathered, the driver and the mate of this truck took to their heels.
They took to their heels after this incident?
I think I'm not too sure.
But the area is not isolated. It seems to be in a very densely populated area, that Akodan area.
Yes.
So how come when this incident happened, they could get away without anybody?
That was exactly the question
them.
I asked the people there. But then, when it happens like that, it looks like people were more bent on trying to retrieve the body, trying to help out. So they all concentrated their efforts in trying to retrieve the dead body, the people who were trapped, and these people were able to find a way to escape through this diversion.
I see. So are there any efforts by the police to track down the driver and the assistant?
Exactly. So the police were very much, it's quite close to the Labadi police station. Okay. So the police were constantly with the Ghana National Fire Service and the ambulance service all throughout. So I know the efforts are being made to track them down. We are hoping that they would surrender themselves for investigation. And I'm sure maybe if they do that, they would face I'm sure the police would know what to do if they turn themselves up. And if they refuse and they are clamped down, that would be another situation.
I see. But finally, before we go, has this vehicle been towed from the area?
Yes. So primarily what the Ghana National Fire Service, per our mandate, when we go to an emergency like this, is that we try to get these people out. And then also we wanted to be very sure that there was no one else trapped after the vehicle has been moved from the rubbles. So then we waited, and then we got the Road Safety Management Services Limited to bring in their towing vehicle, and then we towed it out, and then we went to do our final checks to be sure that there's no one trapped under the rubbles. And then also, there were two vehicles. There was another taxi who was involved in the accident. So per our mandate, we wanted to make sure that there was no spillage of fuel from the collision, so that even if there's any spillage of fuel, our men would apply our foam concentrate and water to be able to avert any disaster that might come as a result of the collision.
Ediowan Alex Nate, appreciate your time on this, and thank you very much for joining us, just coming from the accident scene. Appreciate you. So the information, as has been confirmed, one person has been confirmed dead after a Kia truck loaded with a number of beer bottles in crates crashed into the NPP office at Okodan in the La municipality of the Greater Accra region. I understand the identity of these two persons as confirmed. They are vendors, food vendors, were selling food.
Keeping their ages.
And how old are they?
50 years and 48.
A 50-year-old and a 48-year-old. Sad one. And we're monitoring the case of the one in critical condition as well. So we will be updating you on this matter. And then also the search for the driver and his assistant who caused this accident. But this is Ghana Tonight. Coming up next, we continue with coverage of the destruction caused by the spillage of the Akonsombo and Kpone dams. But this time we put the spotlight on education, how this is impacting on the education in these areas. Well, so the Education Minister, Dr. Yao Duchum, who was in some of the affected communities earlier today, gave an assurance that learning materials will be made available to pupils and students so that learning can continue. They will catch up with lost time. Take a look.
What we need to do is to facilitate that process short term, so that they don't lose out. So now we're going to Accra, we're going to bring teaching and learning materials, bring in books and other things that they need, so that at least they can get some instruction going. I don't think there's any parent here who don't want to have their children at least learning, to take their mind off the tragedy. So I believe what we need to do is to begin to look at bringing the teaching and learning materials, and then the communication will step in for parents to come and take advantage of the opportunity that we are presenting short term.
Well, so those are some of the proposals that the Education Minister put across as being considered by the Ministry and the GES to help address a situation where children, especially, and other people of school-going age who have been affected by this spillage are going to benefit from. Because you recall that as we speak, a number of the classrooms in these affected areas are being used as a shelter for these people who have been displaced. So teaching and learning, nothing is going on. That's what the videos you're seeing on the screen, some of the incidents and the situation happening in places like Mepe, for instance, where some people have voluntarily decided to step in to teach these children so they don't lose out too much. So there are some classes going on under trees in some of the communities that have been heavily hit. That is a situation as we speak, and that's quite worrying. And there have been concerns raised about how the strategy by the handlers of education sector to also mitigate the impact of the situation on the education of these persons and children especially. Now, let's go on to Zoom now. Kofi Asare is the Executive Director of the Africa Education Watch is joining us. Kofi, thank you so much for joining us here on Ghana Tonight. So you've heard the Education Minister there, because there are no designated disaster centers for relief. We're seeing a lot of these classrooms being used as shelter for these displaced persons. Now, what do you expect specific interventions from the GES and the Ministry of Education to address this impact on the children's education as a result of this flooding?
Well, I think that in times of crisis situations like this, education as a right, when truncated or when disrupted, should be prioritized in addition to health and then and shelter and food, because children need to, yes, they need to eat, they need to have shelter, they need to be of good health. At the same time, their right to education cannot be disrupted. So it is an integral part of any humanitarian crisis, and that is why we see you see refugee schools in countries where people are displaced and they are refugees and all that. Within this context, Ghana has enhanced its capacity tremendously. We spent over $15 million of the COVID funding to develop virtual learning systems and technologies, including TV schooling, radio schooling, online and offline, and all requisite technologies that are required to reach the learner population when COVID struck, both urban and rural. And so the Center for National Distance and Open Schooling, CENLOS, is the agency directly responsible for providing virtual learning services. The Ghana Library Authority also significantly benefited from institutional support and also the technology support under the COVID resilience program. So we expect that the Ministry of Education, in collaboration with the Ghana Education Service, will work with these two institutions to immediately deploy virtual learning systems and technologies to the communities whose schooling have been disrupted, by the split of the dam.
Mm-hmm. But also, we understand as well that some 12,000 children, at least that's according to the Child Rights International, 12,000 children almost have been affected by the spillage in just the Volta region. not to talk about the other regions that have been affected by the increase in the water levels of the red, black, and white voters. So that specific instance where children especially have been affected, is there any direct or specific intervention that is modeled for children? Because you're talking about radio and other instances, they may not be able to follow that kind of education process or the pedagogy of using radio to teach them. So any other considerations, especially for children?
Well, the first is that I know in many of these areas, electricity is cut out. There's no water. I mean, electricity is cut off from these communities, or the communities are disconnected from electricity because the substations themselves are submerged. I appreciate that. So we have the technology to provide learning content in audio using radio, okay? In which case, we need to just provide mobile radios at vantage points in the communities affected, and then organize the children around and listen to content. In that case, we're going to deploy radio lessons on any reliable radio network within the catchment area of the affected communities. This was done during COVID, and so it's nothing new. Second, where there is electricity, or in addition to the radio, we can deploy, batteries or solar inverters to power television screens that will air learning content. And again, we have learning content in almost all the key curriculum areas, especially in the core subjects, developed under COVID, so they are already there. It's about bringing screens, powering them with solar or inverters, and then showing the audiovisual learning session, and then having teachers or facilitators, organize the children so that they can participate. If communities are also cut off from their education systems, or they have their education system disrupted, like let's say some schools around the Sogakope area, schools like Komboni, at the Domi Farm Institute, and other basic schools in that part of the town area. In those communities, electricity is still there, okay? So they can have access to the e-learning platforms like the Edmodo, which we spent over $1 million developing for Ghanaian students. Unfortunately, that platform has been largely idle. And so it's an opportunity for the Ghana Library Authority to facilitate the participation of the children in these communities, in lessons on the Edmodo platform. And so we are spoiled for choices. We have so many options to deploy. The only challenge is that because we don't have an operationalized education and emergency policy, it's taking us 2 weeks not to do all this, because within the emergency context, the expediency with which you deploy such virtual learning systems and technologies as education is being disrupted is also very, very important as the technologies or the learning experience themselves. And so I would have expected that by now, we would have reached these children with all these options. But I'm happy I learned the Ministry of Education, the minister also will be there today or yesterday. I'm not too sure about that.
That's today.
I'm informed that the ministry is sending a delegation there this week. And so I hope that by the end of this week, we should see the deployment of virtual learning interventions, in the areas impacted by the spillage of the dam.
But Kofi, you see, the concern here is that if before this flooding, these areas, a number of these areas were already underserved communities or hard-to-reach communities. And so they were already having their challenges with the quality of education. And then this spillage has just gone to exacerbate the already dire situation with respect to children getting access to quality education. And not to even talk about these children with special needs as well. I mean, we're having all of these conversations. What we are hearing is that most of these communities have a large population of children with special needs. How about that? What should be the ministry's focus on this area as well?
Well, children with special needs, Ghana runs an inclusive education program. And as part of our inclusive education program, children with mild to moderate learning disabilities or disabilities are integrated within the schooling system. Okay, they are not separated. It is those who have, more than moderate level of disabilities that are separated and have to attend special schools. Okay, so within the context of the disabled, my assumption is that these are already part of the education system. And so when you're deploying audio-visual learning technologies, you are deploying them in local language or in English language, and in a form that they can hear or see. For visually impaired and then students with optical, hearing deficiencies, you would find that they attend special schools. I'm not informed of any special school that has been closed down as a result of the flooding, but I know that once Ghana has close to 10% of the office of the population being disabled or having various forms of disabilities, you may have some of these learners who are home. These are 8,000 or so learners who are home having some form of disabilities, but it is more likely that they are already integrated within the basic education system because their level of disability wouldn't have been severe. And that is why I'm saying that in the development of the learning contents, which we already have, which were developed during COVID, all these issues were factored into them. We may have a special case if we have evidence that any of the special schools, has been, drowned or have had their education system or schooling disrupted. But for now, I don't have any evidence to the effect that any of the special schools in the regions or the TVET institutions for disabled children or learners, has been affected. Okay. But let me also add that Settlers also has the iBox system. The iBox is virtually, it's a virtual school, okay? The iBox enables learners to access learning content, both on and offline. It is much more suitable for senior high schools. They have virtual labs and all that as part of the B-STEM. I think that schools at the second cycle level that have had to close down, like Komboni Technical, Adidome Farm, I'm told it's now called Adidome Agricultural Institute. These are activity institutions. And then also the other school at Syndicate 2. I think students can be supported to access the iBox,
right?
If they have access to internet. The options available obviously presents an opportunity for the affected learners to determine which one is suitable for them, given their peculiarities in their situation.
It's a very important call there, and Kofi, I appreciate your time, and we'll be monitoring, especially these areas, and the statement by the Education Minister earlier today that they're going to explore the usage of radio and other things and other measures to make up for the lost time of these children who have been heavily impacted by this flooding in these areas. But there's been a lot of focus on Sogakope, Mepe, and it's for good reason. All this in the North Tongue district or constituency for that matter. But there are other areas as well that are crying for attention and they needed help. And this is the Central Tongue. Take a look at this. Central Tongue as well. We received this video from the Member of Parliament for the Central Tongue constituency. This is the Central Tongue area as well that has been heavily hit. Number of buildings submerged as a result of the excess water spilled from the Akonsombo and the Kpong dams. That's what you're seeing, the farmlands that have been destroyed as a result of the spillage. And it's not getting any easier for these people as well who have been displaced. We understand close to 30 communities in this Central Tongue area have been displaced as a result of the flooding. And they're struggling every step of the way, every day, to go through the impact of this flooding, especially in an area that is heavily dominated by farmers. It's a very, very well-known farming community. This is Central Tongue. Now, I want to take you as well to the South Dai as well. The South Dai constituency, where we understand some public places of convenience have also been inundated by the flood waters. That's what you see there. According to the member of parliament for the area, who also sent this earlier, the building with the wall around it, with the water in there, we understand that is a public place of convenience, and their fear is that what you're seeing on the screen there is the public place of convenience. The concern is they haven't made enough alternative water sources available for these persons who have been affected by the flooding. And so some of them are relying or using this water that has been contaminated, of this water that's gone into these public places of convenience. And that's a concern for the public health officials in this area. And it's not looking good. Now, it's a big concern as well. It's something that we're keeping an eye on. Now, these two areas, as a result of the spillage of the excess water from the Konsombo and the Kpon dams, we're also monitoring a situation in the OT region. This is the Dambai area in the OT region. Now, that's not as a result of the spillage. This is as a result of the increasing levels of the water in the white volta. The white volta that goes through the OT region and then also the black volta. That is what has led to flooding in Dambai in the OT region. This is the video that we received as well from a resident who has been seriously affected by this situation. So you see buildings as well submerged. And this is as a result of the increasing water levels in the OT region, the specific case of the white volta. Now, if you go to the Savannah region, we got information as well from the Savannah region, where Bupe specifically, we understand this situation as a result of the increase in the water levels in the red volta that goes through the Savannah region has led to a surge in typhoid cases. Take a look. Now, this is the Savannah region videos that we got earlier today as well from our correspondent, Christopher Mwako. Now, this is the Savannah region areas in the Bupe that have been heavily impacted by the flooding situation there. And it's not looking good at all. And so it's not just the Volta region. We have the situation of the increase in the water levels in the black, white, and red Volta also leading to flooding in parts of the country. In fact, we've covered 7 other regions that have been affected by the increasing water levels in these 3 rivers. That's what's happening. And these people who have been impacted in the Bupe area have been moved to some temporary shelter, some tents for some temporary shelter, as other measures are also being considered. So that's what's happening now. And they are also crying for help as we speak. And the situation is not looking good. So we'll keep an eye on all these areas as well, and we'll keep updating you of how extensive this flooding situation is, and calling on the authorities, in fact, government, to also pay attention to these areas that have been affected by the increase in the water levels in the white, red, and the black voters. This is Ghana Tonight. Coming up next, a former justice of the Supreme Court, Justice William Atuguba, retired, is advocating for reforms in the appointment of judges, which will be based on merit and not on cronyism. We have a conversation on this matter right after this quick break. Stay with us.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to demonstrate to you the superior properties of Flamingo paint as compared to other paint brands on the market. We take equal quantities of Flamingo paint and this ordinary paint. We then dilute them with water. And now, let the test begin. The gentleman on the left is going to apply the ordinary paint, and the gentleman on my right will use the Flamingo Superior paint. As you can clearly see, Flamingo has the obvious better hiding. Furthermore, Flamingo has painted a much larger area. You know, one bucket of Flamingo paint is equal to several buckets of any other paint brand on the market. Flamingo paint is made with superior formulation to give superior durability, superior hiding, superior coverage. Flamingo paint, simply superior.
Everybody knows Acrobato. And if you know Acrobato, it means you know M-Punch Homeopathic Clinic. M-Punch Homeopathic Clinic is my pillar. Let's hear what others are saying about M-Punch Homeopathic Clinic. Who will be careful M-Punch one?
Chesena me ankasa me period na say problems wom ntina ma wo ho idea ma me papa chesena nya asem ketewa na me kwan point no mo hwe me modam no mo hwe bibia na so mo medro me fire no ene ma won kra me enu foforo kwa na mkwan mu a eba
and everything yourself
me ma me no adwodwo eda ho a wontumi nante ene ne ko end point o mama no nura ene ne ho eden a watimi asori anante.
That's end point for you of Acrobato. Hello hey ohwehwe what che okay a free bra wo di end point what dance am me call you no me Joseph Sema na enkoyie e person na my emre nyina na magina sebema na me be fie for there e ho na nyina jaresa. You heard everything. I have secret. M-Punch is my secret. M-Punch Homeopathic Clinic. I'm free.
Hello, my name is Dede, and as you already know, when it comes to quality phones and accessories but yet affordable, it's Franco Trading Enterprise. We are #1. We have television set from 24 inches to 65 inches, Franco air condition from 1.5 horsepower to 2.5 horsepower. We have mobile phones, iPhones, Nokia, Samsung, Huawei, Infinix, Alcatel, and accessories like phone protectors, phone covers, pen drive, hard drives. We have skilled personnel who will serve you as you wish. So look no further than Franco Trading Enterprise. Franco Trading Enterprise, the home of quality air condition, television, mobile phones, and accessories.
When you have the extra bit of ambition in your heart, you also need extra bit of energy to come through. And for that, Rush Energy is the perfect boost to get over the line. Created in the USA and proudly made in Ghana. Thanks to the unique formula, you have the power of ginseng, the benefit of vitamins and all the energy of inositol, taurine and caffeine. Anytime you need to go beyond, Rush Energy will help you get there.
This is Welcome back. This is Ghana Tonight. We're live on TV Ghana on Facebook and DSTV channel 279 all across the world on 3news.com. Justice William Atoguba, retired, that's a Supreme Court judge, indicated earlier today at a lecture at the University of Ghana Political Science Department that there has to be a consideration for a review of the part of the Constitution that gives the powers of the appointment of judges to the superior courts to the president, obviously in consultation with some level of consultation with the Council of State and also the Judicial Council. But take a look at this. This was specifically what he said earlier today. Justice William Atoguba, retired. This is the quote attributed to him. Take a look. He says that, quote, appointments to the judiciary or any other government institution must be made by thoroughly independent bodies based on nothing but merit and not on things like protocol, cronyism, ethnicity, or other improper considerations. That's the proposal that Justice William Atoguba, JSC, retired, is making. Now, he also talks about the quality of, or the consideration of quality of persons who are actually selected as judges on the superior courts in this country. Take a look.
The question is not always whether it happens or not, but how to arrest it. And it to be arrested, if the appointment process is transparent and genuine, such that good and competent legal materials get onto the bench. They have a reputation to protect, so they won't do certain things. But I appeal to the lawyers that they should have mercy for the country also. After making a lot of money over the years, it should be time to come to the bench and serve the people. But not just money upon money upon money upon money throughout like that. Because if anything, most lawyers now are locally trained. The schools you attended, from primary school through middle and then to university, are they your family's private schools? The masters who taught you, your family paid them? Even the courts in which you go and practice and make your money, are they built by your family? Clearly you owe something back to the society as a whole. This shouldn't be ruled out like that. But I think these days, it's improving. Some lawyers of high standing, they accept appointment to the Supreme Court. But they know themselves. They know the dishonest ones. They know the genuine ones.
They know themselves. They know the dishonest ones and the genuine ones. But this is what the position of the law is. And the reason why Justice William Atuguba retired is making this proposal. Take a look at this. Article 144 of the 1992 Constitution of the Republic of Ghana in its current form. Take a look. This is what the provision says. Article 144 of the 1992 Constitution, appointment of judges of superior courts. The Chief Justice shall be appointed, the emphasis on shall, be appointed by the President, acting in consultation with the Council of State and with the approval of Parliament. Now, the other Supreme Court justices shall be appointed by the President, acting on the advice of the Judicial Council, in consultation with the Council of State and with the approval of Parliament. So these are the processes that it goes through. Now, justices of the Court of Appeal and of the High Court and chairmen of the regional tribunals shall be appointed by the President, acting on the advice of the Judicial Council. So that does not go through for the appointments of the justice of the Court of Appeal and the High Court. It doesn't go through, and also the regional tribunal, doesn't go through parliamentary approval. Appointment by the President, acting on the advice of the Judicial Council. So the proposal that William Atuguba, GSC, Supreme Court judge retired, is making is that instead of this appointment being made by the President, it should be made by an independent body, so determined. And in fact, this is a conversation that's been going on for quite a while. Bobby Bansing is a private legal practitioner. He's joining us on the telephone. He's also a law lecturer at the Ghana School of Law. Good evening, Counsel. Thank you for joining us here on Ghana Tonight. Now, this proposal, Justice William Atuguba is not the first to have actually made it. This is a conversation that's been going on for quite a while now. Help me understand what was going through the mind of the framers of the Constitution to give the power to appoint the head of another arm of government to the executive, which is also another arm of government. So why the President, being the head of the executive, will be given the power to appoint Chief Justice, who is the head of the legislative arm of government, for that matter?
It's a cocktail of the parliamentary system of government and the presidential system of government. And so it's a very attempt to keep separation of powers and at the same time give the best level of checks and balances as adopted by the framers of the Constitution. And so the judiciary is supposed to be an independent arm of the... If you take the separation of powers as we have it in the United States, you notice that the highest levels of the judiciary are still appointed by the President. In some parts of the judicial system in the United States, members are even elected. Now, if we have the framers of the Constitution wanted a combination of both the parliamentary system and the presidential system. So I believe that may have influenced the clauses, the articles in the 1992 Constitution, which gives the president the right to, and I want to use the word, it is to nominate, not appoint, members to the Superior Court, to the Supreme Court, not the Superior Court, to the Supreme Court. Now the nomination to the Supreme Court, which is the highest court of the land, is that when the president nominates, the nomination is done in consultation with the Council of State and to a large extent the Judicial Council, because they must appear before the Judicial Council. After their nomination, then they appear before the parliamentary subcommittee for approval before their eventual appointment. And so if there is any reason why a person who has been nominated for the appointment does not meet the constitutional requirement of independence, of high moral and standing and what have you, then Parliament, which is supposed to be a representation of all members of all the electorates, of all Ghanaians, if I may put it that way, would have the ultimate supervisory role to ensure that that person does not get to the Supreme Court. And in the history of Ghana's democratic dispensation, maybe I do not recall under 1992 I don't have any memory of 1992 Constitution where a nominee of the president to the Supreme Court has been rejected by Parliament yet. But in previous dispensation of our constitutional regime, which articles are not very different from what we have currently, there were nominees from the president that was, or at least one that was rejected by Parliament. And so Parliament plays that role, as it were. So this is my understanding of how the framers of the 1992 Constitution intended those clauses, the relationship between the judiciary and the executive to play out in respect of the nomination of members to the Supreme Court. When it comes to the High Court and the Court of Appeal, those ones the president appoints. So if there is any possibility that the perception at that level, I agree that it may be there. For the High Court and the Court of Appeal, it may be there. But even with that, the appointment is done in consultation with other state entities or other organs of government that are supposed to be independent.
I see. But you see, Lawyer Bouncing, so even at the High Court and the Court of Appeal, and when political cases go to these levels of the court, there is always the question about the lack of fairness in rulings. And it's always because of how the judges to these courts are appointed. So you would not fault those who make the point that this provision that gives power to the president to appoint justices to these levels of the court influences that perception that the judiciary cannot be trusted to give a fair trial in political cases when it could go not in the favor of the person who appointed them?
Well, my response to that is twofold. First, there are internal mechanisms within the Judicial Services Act or the applicable law that regulates or provides for how persons, even if they are appointed by the president, are found to have flouted the law in terms of exhibiting that those biases manifestly, whether political or otherwise, could be removed. And there's a procedure for removal of even High Court and Court of Appeal judges in the Constitution. And so even though the president appoints the High Court and Court of Appeal judges, the Constitution and the other applicable laws provide for a means of removing those persons that the president has no control over the removal. And so, yes, the perception is there, but there's also the mechanism for the removal if there's evidence that the person who has been appointed by the president actually is no longer fit, let me put it that way, to be in that seat. And so the procedure for removal, that the president has no control. It is there in the Constitution. Now, my second response to it is what is the alternative, Alfred? Our constitution, as we have it, provided for that checks and balances. We cannot have it all. If we say the executive should not appoint, are we going to say that the legislative arm of government, which is Parliament, should do the appointment? Mind you, the Parliament is made up of, it's very partisan. It's made up of persons who are there on political colors, and so the fear of having people appointed based on political lines that we are running away from if the appointment is done by the executive. We will not run away from it if the appointment is done by the Parliament, because parliamentarians are also voted on the lines of party politics. Now, should it be done by members of Council of State? I have always said that the Council of State should play a more defining role than we currently have it. I do not agree that the president should appoint majority or even most of the any number or any person to the Council of State. I believe that all should be elected on non-partisan grounds. If we have the Council of State elected on non-partisan grounds, we can have the Council of State play such roles. They would advertise vacancies in the judiciary, receive applications, do a public vetting, and then come up with their results. If there's any alternative, this is what I can think of.
Right. But Bunsen, appreciate your time. Thank you very much. And this is a conversation that's not ending today, because it's going to keep coming up until there's that reason to amend this part of the Constitution and also look at these alternatives. Thank you. But Bunsen is a private legal practitioner, is a lecturer at the law school that's here in Ghana, joining us with your thoughts on this. Appreciate it. Coming up next on Ghana Tonight, quickly before we go, there have been some concerns raised about the lithium mining lease that the government of Ghana granted a private company to mine the country's newly discovered mineral resource, lithium. It's added on to the many natural resources we have in this country. What is the agreement and what are the conditions in there? Now, the Barari DV Ghana Limited, that's a subsidiary of the Atlantic Lithium Limited, has been granted a 15-year mining lease to mine lithium at Ewoya in the Infantiman municipality of the Central Region. The lease covers an area of approximately 42.63 square meters. I'm going to show you all of that. But this is the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, Samuel Abujinapo, talking about this earlier. Take a look.
Negotiations, as I've indicated, we concluded an agreement with Atlantic Lithium for the exploitation of lithium in Ewoya in the central region of our country. And today, I am happy to report through you to the country on behalf of the President and his government that we are granting to the company, Atlantic Lithium, a mining lease to commence the construction of the mining of lithium in our country. For the avoidance of doubt, this is the first lease granted for the mining of lithium in our country. This is going to be the first lithium project in Ghana. And distinguished guests, the lease we are signing today, I should emphasize, differs from our standard mining lease. Standard mining lease we've been signing for many years in respect of gold, manganese, bauxite, and other known minerals in our country is fundamentally different from the one we are going to sign today. And as I've explained, this is because of the policy approved by Cabinet, which is to say that green minerals are to be treated differently.
Well, that's the Lands and Natural Resources Minister there. Now, this is what we do know, at least the published information about this agreement, because there's demand for further and better particulars, more details of this proposal, which government hasn't made available as yet. Take a look at this. And we've got this Australian company, Atlantic Lithium Limited. Barari DV Ghana Limited is a unit of the Sydney-based company. And then the 6 years of exploration led to the discovery of this high-grade lithium in commercial quantity and estimated at 35.3 metric tons with a value of $4.8 billion over the lifespan of the mine. The project comprises deposits in Ewoya, Abonko, and Kampakrom, approximately 100 kilometers southwest of Accra. 2 million metric tons of lithium is expected to be mined annually. And Bembachi is an energy governance professional, executive director of the Africa Center for Energy Policies, joining us. Mr. Bembachi, you've been at least reading what has been published so far, because we all don't know the full details of this engagement. What are your concerns about this, what you've read so far, both the positives and the negatives?
Thank you. I think lithium is one of the sought after resources for the way energy is evolving in the current global context. So we're now talking about renewable energy that is also so dependent on battery technologies, and lithium plays a major role in the current environment, where it is the most required mineral to be able to produce some of the most efficient batteries that we have available on the market now. So lithium has become more or less the gold of the electrification world that we have today. That it means to allow electric cars to be produced, you need the lithium-ion batteries that are more efficient to be able to last for a longer duration. So Ghana is lucky to be among the countries that have deposits of lithium, and the first of its kind is the one that Atlantic Lithium just signed with the Ghana government, which we are hoping could be produced in about 15 years. So that is good news, particularly where a lot of revenues could come from that resource to support the country. The question about refining, I mean, that is the aspiration and goal of every country. But the reality is, when it comes to some of these mineral deposits, if you have only one deposit, which is, I think, is about between 40 and 50 million tons, it's difficult to really justify an industry around it.
Right.
And therefore, it was surprising some of the things that we're hearing, that we're going to refine all the lithium in Ghana.
But you see, there's a concern there, Mr. Boachi. I mean, it's good to have these aspirations, is it not? Because in all the previous agreements signed, we didn't look at the component of refining here in this country. But the concern about not having enough information about this deal, is it one that you share as civil society as well? Because for us in the media, just snippets of information about this.
Absolutely. I think Parliament would then have to approve the transaction. But even before Parliament does that, we have had numbers. We had, royalty percentages, the taxes, and other benefits that the state is looking for and projected to have received in that agreement. But the agreement is not out there. I don't see why such agreements should be made secret. Sometimes you read this agreement and you wonder, why do politicians want to keep the agreement secret? But there is nothing in those agreements that are not supposed to be in the public, for the public to know what the government is actually signing on behalf of the citizens. And so in most cases, you only see the agreement when the deal is done and everything, all the approvals are gotten. And it becomes difficult, regardless of how you analyze it, to make input into some of those agreements. And, so I think government should open up and make the process much more transparent. Have a conversation even with the public on what government has negotiated for, even before it was signed. We're hoping that we would have engaged the public, would have engaged all the expertise, Ghanaians within and without, who may understand, the lithium industry much, much better, even than some of us who are in the space, to agree on what is possible to do with that resources before the agreement was signed.
Right.
But again, here you have it. The politicians don't want anybody to see it until it is signed or approved.
Indeed, to say the least. Appreciate your time, Zabache. Thank you so much for joining us. And I know that you are ASAP leading conversation about the future of energy. So we'll be following it up tomorrow as well and see how things play out. Bembachi is an energy governance professional and the executive director of the Africa Center for Energy Policy. Thank you so much for joining us here on Ghana Tonight. On behalf of the rest of the team, we appreciate your company. Join us same time tomorrow for another conversation. I am Alfred Ocansey. Have a good night.
Ghana Tonight is brought to you by
Flamingo Paint. Superior durability, superior hiding, superior coverage, simply superior.